is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Not really sure what happened there. I think I just had a stroke. That's what happens when you do shows 6 days in a row. Lost all control there, but we had a slate last night. Do I remember it? Nope. I was super exhausted and fell asleep very early. I woke up to some cash, which was nice. Couldn't even tell you what I played. I think it was I did some expensive Dallas with somebody. I don't remember. But we have 10 more games here tonight. Good morning to everyone except Jacob Truba. Yeah, I did see he knocked out Ryan Leonard. Didn't see the hit. I know Tom Wilson was pissed, but that's like of anyone being pissed about a hit, Tom Wilson being pissed should not exist. But we have 10 games here tonight. Joining me to break down some Cliffy. What's going on?
Yeah, not a whole lot. Nice little 10-game slate ahead of us. I was out last night, but I got home in time for the Anaheim game. Anaheim, I can't tell if they look good or if Washington had an off night, but Anaheim managed to pull out the shootout win. They've had a lot of very close games, like late comebacks, multi-goal comebacks, that type of thing. God, they've been such a fun team to watch. Sucks to anybody that played the Sabres last night like I did. I mentioned in our chat, Eric Comrie had far and away the best regular season game of his career. Like 4.6 goals saved above expected, I believe, which is 42% higher than his previous career best. And I went and looked back. Buffalo's last 3 losses were that game, the Urson game, where Urson had his best game in a year, and then the 42 save shutout by Jake Allen. 11.4 goals saved above expected by the opposing goalies in Buffalo's last 3 losses. That's cost them 4 goals a game. The Sabres, man, can't catch a break is an understatement. But yeah, I had a Dallas power play stack with some cheap Buffalo players. They didn't do anything. So it goes. But tonight, as Josh likes to say, you cannot hit the nuts unless you play. And we are playing again here tonight with the 10-game slate. A lot of the big boys off the board. There are obviously some big names, but Colorado is playing this afternoon. Nikita Kucherov is injured. David Pastrnak still not back. So a lot of high-scoring players not on the board here tonight. Makes it kind of interesting. Couple super chalky spots. We'll get through it as we go game by game.
Yeah, and Igor managed to keep Colorado off the board in the first. So that's nice.
Good start.
Yeah. Anyway, there are not too many monstrous totals here. It's pretty close across the board. There's 2 fairly large mismatches by totals that we'll get to. Ownership is a bit spread out outside of Edmonton, which we'll talk about, but should get into this slate. Start it with the Devils. New Jersey Devils with a 2.9 total heading into Boston. The Bruins, 2.7 total. Devils played last night. They lost. They got shut out. I don't even remember who they played. Who did they play? Vegas, right, yeah. 3-0. They'll probably run back Hischier, Meyer, Nason, Bratt, Mercer, Palat. Boston still without Pastrnak, as Cliffy mentioned, going Geeky, Lindholm, Steves, Zaka, Arvidsson, Middlestat. It was Jacob Markstrom in net last night. It will most likely be Jake Allen here tonight. I believe Swayman's back in net.
Yeah.
For Boston. I know Devils are back-to-back on the road. But this is a pretty good matchup on the power play. And Boston just takes a boatload of penalties. I don't particularly love these even strength lines with Nason being off the power play, Palat kind of acting as a third wheel. I'd probably run back something like Hischier, Meyer, take off Nason, add in Mercer. That would run you 18-7. You add in Bratt, then you're going above 20K. Bratt's kind of weird recently. He hasn't had the best stretch, but he does that, right? Like where he has like 1.3, 2.6, 4.1, and then out of nowhere, 41. So like, yeah, I think you can add him in if you're worried about the price. I don't mind adding Mercer in because, just like Cole Sillinger, the Devils love playing him. So I think it would be the top line and add in either Mercer or Bratt. You want to just full on power play stack. That's more of an MME thing for me. I just, don't really want to full send a Devils power play stack on a 20-team slate when they played yesterday and didn't score. So, I would do Hischermeyer, either Brad or Mercer. I lean Mercer just because of the price you want to add in. I saw Dougie was on a multiple power plays last night. They're doing that again, where they're, Nemec, I think, did one. Dougie had two. I don't even know. But, yeah, some sort of power play stack on the Devils side. On the Boston side, I know that top line is scoring. They're not really creating. But, like, Hischer and Meyer this season are below average defensively. Not sure Nason really helps that department. I'm not saying run out and play Boston 1 here because – you know what? I don't really love playing Alex Steves, but they're 14,500. Geeky he's been playing like his hair's on fire since last season. I think you can do worse in the mid-range in MME than Boston 1 here. I think it would be a 20 max to 150 max type deal. You want a one-off Morgan Geeky. It's an expensive one-off, and he really needs multiple points. I guess it's fine. You want to go to Boston 2 as a filler. At 11.5, you get 2 of the 3 on the top power play unit. Arvidsson has been scoring despite not being on the top power play. I think you can do worse than Boston 2 as a filler. I throw them in a basket of fillers for my 20 to 150 max. So I don't particularly love this game. I prefer the Devils side. It would be some sort of power play stack, but I wouldn't just throw Boston off the slate just because Pasternak's out. The Devils really haven't been great defensively, and they are back-to-back on the road.
Yeah, it's always, as you mentioned with Boston, it's always important to highlight how many penalties they actually do take. Like over the last 5 weeks, leading the league at 3.6 times shorthanded per game on the season, also leading the league at 3.8 times shorthanded per game. They take a ton of penalties. They sit I think it's 7th in power play goals against on the season. So good power play matchup for the Devils. Of course, the Devils themselves don't draw a ton of power plays, 6th fewest on the season, 5th fewest in the last 5 weeks. So maybe they get 3, 8, maybe even 4, but a road back-to-back is kind of a tough spot for them. The New Jersey top line, I was looking over the last 2 years because that Hischer, Meyer, and Nason played together a fair bit last season. And this is largely the same roster from last year, right? 3.3 expected goals, 71 shot attempts per 60, and 340 minutes together. I do think they're in play here. Boston does like to use that Zaka Middlestat line in the shutdown matchup. They've been fairly good defensively, 2.3 expected goals against per 60, but it's such a good power play spot for that New Jersey top line. And the fact that they're, not expensive, 16,200. Now you need at least a couple goals from them, but they can certainly do that. I will say they're not at the top of my list for that price range, right? Like they're 16,200. We'll get to other spots on the slate. We'll get to Detroit. We'll get to Utah. We'll get to Toronto. We'll get to Montreal. Like within 1,500 to 2,000, there are a bunch of lines I think I'd rather play. So not too in on New Jersey. On the Boston side, they're both their top 2 lines are playable just because they are fairly cheap. But you're right about them not really creating that well. Morgan Geeky in the last 3 games on the ice for 48 shot attempts per 60 minutes, but the team shooting 24% in that time at 5-on-5. So it's a nice little hot streak for the Bruins. I don't think it's going to keep going. 14,500 might be worth a stab in MME. I'm kind of with you. Like for me, this is a game where I'm not really excited about stacking either side. I do think there are defensemen to play on both sides. We'll get to that at the end of the show. I do think both goalies are in play here. We'll get to that at the end of the show. As far as stacking the forwards go, listen, this is a 5.5 total where neither team's at 3.0. It's not really high on my list for single entry stacking tonight.
Utah Mammoth with a 2.9 total heading into Calgary. The Flames have managed to persuade Vegas to give them a 3.1 total. Utah played last night. They're probably going to run back Keller, Schmaltz, Peterka, Genther, Cooley, Cheeks, Krause, Carcone, McBain. It was Vejmelka last night, so it's probably going to be Vitek, Vanacek. He has not been good. Looks like Dustin Wolf for Calgary. Calgary going Coronado, Huberdeau, Frost, Kadri, Farabee, Sharon Govich, back on Coleman, Zari. So this is not a good 5-on-5 spot for Utah. It's a pretty good power play spot. The problem is the Utah power play has not been great. I know they scored last night. Sergachev had a power play goal. Keller, Schmaltz, Peterka is going to get a lot of that back on Coleman, Zari matchup. And that's just not great. They have been very good this season. That Schmaltz centering Keller and Peterka in a smaller sample has been pretty good offensively. It's just I don't really back-to-back on the road. I don't really want to stack them going into back on Coleman. I think by default that would give me interest in Cooley, Genther, Cheeks at 14,300, 0.1. No one's playing him, 0.1% projected. You get Cooley and Genther on the top unit. The line that they will see a fair bit of at 5-on-5 is that Frost, Coronado, Huberdeau line. They are their worst 5-on-5 defensively. You get Cooley and Genther on the top power play unit. As a mid-range stack, I think I prefer them to, Boston 1. Again, I'm not really prioritizing Utah here, but, Genther, Cooley, top power play. We'll see. Wolf has been a lot better so far since the beginning of the year. It would be Utah 2 in 20 max. On the Calgary side, listen, it's not a great matchup, but like these new iterations of lines really have not been good defensively for Utah. It's a very small sample, but Vitek Vanacek's been awful this season. I don't mind Frost, Coronado, or Huberdeau. They're coming in at 1.4% projected at 12,500. That they see decent minutes. It's the price is pretty low here. They're fully correlated. I don't mind them at that price. You want to go to Kadri, Farabee, Sharon Govich, like they've been fine together. They'll see, bottom 6 matchups. So honestly, I think there's 3 playable lines for Calgary. I don't know if I prioritize any of them, but if you're power play stacking something expensive elsewhere, you could do like a back on Coleman. If you need a fully correlated filler, don't mind Coronado, Huberdeau, Frost, one off Kadri always in play. So I know they have a 3.1 total and it's kind of baffling, but at their prices, I don't mind Calgary here.
Yeah. Coronado, Huberdeau, Frost, it's nice that they're perfectly correlated. I mean, the Calgary power play hasn't been good this year, basically in any iteration. And the Utah penalty kill, Utah doesn't take a whole lot of penalties. On the season, 21st by time shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. Also 21st. They're not giving up very many power play goals. Power play goals against per game. Bottom 10 or top 10, however you want to look at it, 10 fewest in the league. So not a good power play matchup for Calgary. So I'm not really worried about that perfect correlation. Again, it's nice to have, obviously, but it's not my main focus here. My main focus would be the 5-on-5 lines. And, both those Calgary top lines have been producing relatively well. I would probably go to Kadri, Farabee, and Sharangovich. It's one of those things like going back to last year, Kadri and Farabee have very good 5-on-5 shot creation, expected goal creation numbers, just very low shooting percentage. I mean, most Flames lines and players have very low shooting percentages. That's just kind of how they play. But their last 10 games together, 73 shot attempts, 3.2 expected goals per 60. Joel Farabee, over 2 shots per game. They're playing 16 to 18 minutes. I'm not really worried about any of the 5-on-5 matchups coming back from Utah. Like, I think, if you want to play the perfectly correlated line, no issue. I would probably dip down to Farabee, Kadri, Sharangovich. I think Backlund, Coleman, and Zari are in play. Like you said, if you're going the super expensive stack, those guys will get reasonable minutes. They've been able to control the play. Their value is defensive, but, at under 10K, you can't complain. But for me, it is the Kadri line. On the Utah side, like, I'm out on Utah 1. As you said, that Coleman, Backlund, Zari line, just a meat grinder defensively, 1.9 expected goals against, 48 shot attempts against, 1 goal against per 60 at 5-on-5. Even with Sam Honzik there, they're great defensively. So, like, it really doesn't matter what the iteration is. Calgary's been taking fewer penalties. Their penalty kill has gotten a little bit better as the season has worn on. So I'm out on Utah 1. For me, I agree. It's Utah 2. Once you get past that Coleman, Backlund, Zari line, then you can kind of, go to town defensively on Calgary. Like that Frost line in their last 10 games, 3.3 expected goals against. The Kadri line, 2.7 expected goals against. They're not good defensively. Whichever matchup Genther and Cooley and Cheeks find themselves in, it doesn't really matter whether it's Kadri line or the Frost line. So I really do like Utah 2 here. I would probably just full stack because, like I said, I'm not really worried about power play correlation on either side in this game. So I think it's both second lines for me. Calgary 3 playable if you need some, super cheap guys for your Edmontons or Minnesotas or whatever.
Nashville Predators with a 2.4 total heading into Carolina. The Hurricanes have a 3.5. Carolina going Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov, Ehlers, Stankov, and Blake. Stahl, Martinook, Carrier. Nashville going O'Reilly, Stamkos, Evangelista, Forsberg, Marchessault, Haula. Carolina won 20,700. It's pretty expensive here. They have a 10.4% top 2 stack, 3% projected ownership. It's good positive leverage. But there really aren't that many expensive options here tonight, especially now that Kucherov's out. I guess if Minnesota stacks their top line, they'd be like almost 22K. You have Winnipeg 1 here at 20,600, $100 cheaper. You could do something with Edmonton to make them expensive. But, 20,700, it's pretty expensive for me. It's not like that Nashville top line has been bad defensively either. They've been let down by their goaltending. And as Cliffy mentioned, and I didn't really want to believe him, my wife agrees with him that I don't really believe anyone when they tell me stuff. Carolina won. Not great on the power play. So I think, at that price, it's going to be a pass for me. If you want to play them, listen, they've been excellent at 5-on-5. It's not the best power play matchup. Maybe it improves over time with Stahl taking the faceoffs, but on this slate, I'm probably looking elsewhere. For me, it would be Carolina 2, Ehlers, Stankoven, and Blake at 14,300 because, if Aho and Stahl split the shutdown duties, the other is going to go out against the second line. And then once you get into the bottom 6 of Nashville, there's just big problems there. And that's where Stankov and Blake and Ehlers are going to see. They have been excellent offensively in, 150 plus minutes together. I do really like them at 14,300. They're coming in a little over-owned, but 5.9% projected really isn't that bad. So it would be Carolina 2 for me. You want to play, Stahl as a cheap one-off because he's on the top power play, fine. But Carolina 2 for me. On the Nashville side, like these lines are like Carolina's lines defensively are just really, really good. It's just like Carolina's goaltending. if it is Bussy, he's been fine. It's Freddie who has been up and down. So, like, if you get to the first or second line in MME, I think that's fine, but I'm certainly not running out of my way to stack Nashville. Evangelista one-off, I guess, is fine. I'll never say no to a Forsberg one-off, but for the most part in single entry, I'm out on Nashville.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to get too into the weeds on this, but there are some indicators like that Carolina's kind of changed their offense from last year. They're focused a little bit more on rush play. When you focus more on rush play offensively, you can give up some odd man chances and stuff like that defensively. So maybe like they're a little bit worse defensively. Nashville has been better. Like I mentioned it, I think yesterday on one of the social media sites, can't remember which, but over Nashville's last 16 games, which is 20% of the season, they're third in shot attempt share in the league and 8th or 9th by expected goal share. Like, they've legitimately been playing a lot better for the last month plus. But this is still a pretty tough matchup going into Carolina. The thing is like Carolina's penalty kill has been on a little bit of a slide. Like, Carolina is one of those teams that has like a top 3 penalty kill like year after year after year. And that's not been the case this season. Carolina, by penalty kill percentage, 21st in the league, worse than San Jose and Minnesota. That's not what you want to see. So, like, I think if the right team was in town, maybe it was Toronto the other night, but they don't have a good power play. If the right team is in town, maybe I would have some interest. But Nashville has a terrible power play. Nashville's top power play units at 1.5 goals per 60 this season. They're shooting 3.5%, but the thing is, even if they're shooting 14%, they would be 30% below league average by scoring rate. Like, they're just not generating anything and they're not finishing. So you're relying 5-on-5. Like, if you want to play some one-off guys from Nashville, I guess it's fine, but I'm not full stacking anything. For me, it's the Carolina side. It's a weird thing with Carolina too. It's like they seem to be like, when you think of the Carolina Hurricanes as a franchise over the last 5 years, like, this is kind of the line that you envision in your head, where they're creating a ton of shots. They're just not putting the puck in the net. I over their last 10 games, 2.7 expected goals on 74 shot attempts per 60. Like, that's not very good shot quality. Either they're not creating good chances or they're not getting to the front of the net or whatever it might be. Like, Jackson Blake, last 16 games, 28 shots. Like, that's not very much shot volume. It's like 1.7 per game. Like, I don't know. I think kind of by default, I would go to Carolina 1, because here's the thing is, like, there's not a ton of expensive lines on the board. Like, we'll get to Minnesota later. We're not exactly sure what the Minnesota top line is going to look like. Tampa Bay 1 is not going to be 21K because Kucherov is out. It's basically like Winnipeg and then under 20K from there. We'll talk about Winnipeg in a bit. I don't have a ton of interest in them. So it's almost like by default this is the expensive line I would want to target here tonight. Just because there really might not be another option. But it's probably more of a 20 max, 150 max type deal. Like, just because they're coming in at 3% ownership. Their last 10 games, 3.1 expected goals, 80 shot attempts, much better shot quality. Andrei Svechnikov, last 15 games, he's just piling up the shots. He's over 3 shots per game. Like, I do like Carolina 1 here. I just feel like if I was in one of those 5 maxes or whatever, maybe I have 1 Carolina, or 20 max, certainly I'd have 1, just because they're coming in with really low ownership. So I kind of like Carolina 3 the best, just using them as a filler for other more expensive stacks like Edmonton, Minnesota, Winnipeg, what have you. So I guess for me, it's Carolina 3, then Carolina 1, and then some Nashville one-offs. But again, this is another game where I don't have a ton of interest.
St. Louis Blues with a 2.5 total heading into Ottawa. The Senators have a 3 total. Ottawa going Kachuk, Stützle, Zetterlund, Batherson, Cousins, Perron. And then Shane Pinto is hurt, so they are going Giroux, Amadio, Grieg. Blues are going Thomas, Buchnevich, Neighbors, Holloway, Dvorsky, Kyrou, and then Shen, Bukestad, and Suter down on the third line. This is just a tough 5-on-5 matchup for, like, honestly, for both teams. It's just, like, the Blues at 5-on-5 defensively really haven't been awful this season. It's just their goaltending has just been atrocious, and it's slowly improving. It's a good power play spot for both sides. The Blues power play is atrocious. I'd probably, like, if you want to go to a Blues line, I think it would be Thomas, Buchnevich, Neighbors. Like, they are 13,400 fully correlated. Counts for something, I guess. Like, historically speaking, not this year, but like in years past, that line has been fairly good. I don't love them here. I'm probably not full stacking anything on the Blues. If you want to one off Kyrou, one off Buchnevich, one off, Dylan Holloway, something like that. I'm really not super into the Blues here. I don't love the Senators either. It's just, it's a good power play matchup. Their power play has been good. I'd probably go to Stützle, Kachuk, Zetterlund at 16,700. They're coming in at 2.5% projected ownership. If you want to leave off Zetterlund and add in Cousins or something, that'll make the line 17,700. You get full power play. The Blues penalty kill is atrocious. They don't take a ton of penalties, and that Zetterlund line has been fairly good since Kachuk has come back. So I don't mind Ottawa 1 here just straight up. I would imagine with Pinto out, the top power play is going to be Stützle, Kachuk, Batherson, Cousins, and then Sanderson. So if you want to go to that second line, you still get 2 of the 3. They're 12,500. They've been fine in a small sample. So, but in a good power play matchup, I'd probably want to get Brady Kachuk in there. That's why I lean Ottawa 1, but I think Ottawa 2 is fine. Ottawa 3, I guess, is fine as a super cheap filler. I just don't know. Like, I know they trust Pinto. I don't know how much they trust Ridley Grieg, even though we're Grieg guys. But so I probably stick to the top 2 lines. I lean Ottawa 1, but I think Ottawa 2 is fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Pinto being out, he's, quote, slotted on the third line. He's been a top 6 forward, if not a top line forward by ice time for most of the season. So I do wonder how much ice time that top 6 gets, because we mentioned on the last show, like, Brady Kachuk is not a guy that typically gets a ton of ice time. With Pinto hurt in that last game, he got up to 20 minutes. I don't think they're going to play that much, but I don't think that third line is going to play like 17 to 19 minutes as they had been at times this season. So I do think you're going to get more ice time from the Ottawa top 6. Cousins and Batherson have actually been fairly good together this season. 56 shot attempts, 3.2 expected goals per 60. Cousins, 24 shots in his last 10 games, so there's decent shot volume there. If you go Batherson, Cousins, Kachuk, that stack is 16,600. You get all 3 on the top power play. I mean, it sucks leaving off Stützle, but considering, like, there's a reasonable chance that he's going to lead. He's going to lead the Sens, at least the Sens forwards in ice time. But, like, this isn't, Stützle's not a guy. After a decent start to the season, he just hasn't been shooting the puck. His last 15 games, 25 shots on goal total. Shooting 25% certainly helps make the goal total look decent. But, a Cousins, Batherson, Kachuk 3-man, I think is perfectly fine. St. Louis penalty kill, not great. They don't take penalties. That's the problem. On the season, tied for the fewest times shorthanded per game. Over the last 5 weeks, fewest times shorthanded per game. They just don't take penalties. They're the most disciplined team in the league, if you want to call them that. So that's kind of the problem. Is, like, does Ottawa get 1, maybe 2 power plays here tonight? Like, that's just one of the issues. So if you want to just stack Ottawa 2 outright, Cousins, Batherson, Perron, I think that's fine at 12,500. I'd be fine taking out Perron, putting in Kachuk. Going to be honest, I have a little bit of interest on the St. Louis side here, just because you take Pinto out I don't know if anybody's looked at the numbers for Grieg and Giroux this year, but they're not very good defensively. The rest of the Ottawa lineup, Ottawa still doesn't have Thomas Chabot. Artem Zuba's back, which is nice, but they're missing Chabot. They're missing Pinto, who's their shutdown center. So a couple guys missing from that, key guys missing from that lineup. Ottawa penalty kill, not great. It's not like St. Louis power play is great, but Kyrou, Holloway, Suter, 12,600, 73 shot attempts, 4.7 expected goals, 4.1 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5 this season. It has been St. Louis's best 5-on-5 line by a fair margin. They're probably not going to get a ton of ice time. Dylan Holloway, 15 shots in his last 5 games. He looks like he's finally starting to come alive over the last couple of weeks. Jordan Kyrou has been their best forward this season, I think fairly easily. Pia Suter's been their best center. They've been good together. There's no matchups really that I'm concerned about from the St. Louis side, and they're certainly not going to see much of the Sanderson matchup just because they're going to be going out against Robert Thomas. So I kind of like St. Louis too here. I think they're my favorite line in this game because at 12,600, you can use them as a filler for your $18,000, $19,000, and $20,000 stack. So St. Louis 2, Ottawa 2. Again, if you want to take out Perron, put in Kachuk, I think that's fine.
Montreal Canadiens with a 3.1 total heading into Toronto. The Leafs have a 3.4. Montreal going Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, although that's unconfirmed because they didn't practice this morning or yesterday, I don't think. But that's what they were the last game. And then the second line was Kapanen, Demidov, Texier, Bolduc all the way down to the fourth line with Veleno and Jared Davidson. Toronto going Matthews, Nyes, Domi, Nylander, Tavares, Callan. I guess I should mention that third line, McMahon, Roy, Joshua, because it's pretty funny or ironic that their best scoring line recently has been their third line when they are actually cup contenders. Their biggest issue was not having a third line. So, we laugh about that. It's a pretty interesting game, honestly, because, Toronto is just trash defensively. Maybe even offensively too. They have been on a pretty big tear though recently. They're out of the basement. Congrats to them. Mom told them to come up for some meatloaf. But I do really like Montreal 1 here. And it's a good matchup, and it's kind of a price thing now, right? Because Slavkovsky was playing with Demidov and Kapanen, so his price has stayed low. That top line is now 18,100. Suzuki and Caulfield's numbers are remarkably better with Slavkovsky than without. Austin Matthews' line has been let's use proper verbiage here, atrocious defensively. Their penalty kill is bad. Woll got hurt, so it's Dennis Hildeby in net. And while I like Dennis Hildeby, he is just a prospect. There is a wide range of outcomes for goalies anyway. I do really like Montreal 1 here. They're coming in with 7.4% projected ownership, which is positive leverage. They have a double-digit top 2 stack. It's higher than the Matthews line, if you were wondering, at the same price. So I do like Montreal 1 here. You want a one-off Bolduc or something, I guess it's fine. His minutes probably are not going to be great. So it's Montreal 1 for me, or bust. On the Toronto side, it's probably Toronto 2, Tavares, Nylander, Cowan at 18.5. I don't love full stacking Toronto, but they are fully correlated. I'd be more likely to do like a Cowan, Nylander 2-man or something like that. Tavares at 7K just stings the nostrils. If you want to put in like Nyes there or something, go three winger to make it like a 17,500 stack. Like that goal from Nyes the other night was disgusting. That is just max effort. You see him giving max effort. You give the Freddie Mercury wannabe, you watch him play. It doesn't look like he's giving a damn about what's going on. But I guess like Cowan one off. If you want to go to Toronto 1, I think that's fine. I just, Matthews at 9K doesn't feel great. Some sort of power play stack I think would be the play, but I think I would do it with Toronto too. If you want to leave off Tavares, add in Nyes or Matthews. That's probably how I would do it. My favorite line in this game though is Montreal 1.
Yeah. Start on the Montreal side. I was looking at Toronto's numbers. I was just looking over the last 15 games. By expected goals against, fourth worst in the league. By shots against, worst in the league. By shot attempts against, worst in the league. When they've been able to stay in games, it's been Joseph Woll playing extremely well. Obviously, he's not playing tonight. This is a really good matchup for Montreal. And as you mentioned, that top line for the Habs has been great for 3 years now, but really good this year, 3.3 expected goals per 60. Perfectly correlated on the top power play unit. Suzuki's been, easily over 20 minutes a game when they've had some players injured. So, he'll be there again. Even Caulfield and Slavkovsky will be 18, maybe even 19 minutes for Caulfield. Caulfield, 30 shots in his last 10 games, even though he hasn't been scoring as much. He's still getting some good shot volume off. You mentioned the Toronto top line. They're up to near 60 minutes together, 69 shot attempts against per 60. It's at 5-on-5. That's atrocious. I don't think that's a surprise for a Max Domi line. So I think it's a matchup that favors Montreal. I do really like Montreal 1 here. And the fact that they're priced in the same range as Toronto, I would probably rather just play Montreal than either of the Toronto lines here. I do think it's a good matchup for both sides, and I'll get to the Leafs in a second, but just having that perfect correlation and a long track record of success in a very good matchup, I really do like Montreal 1. On the Toronto side, I mentioned how good Montreal 1 has been this year, and that extends to them defensively. When they're on the ice at 5-on-5, 1.97 expected goals against per 60. When the top line's off the ice, 2.8 expected goals against per 60. They get 42% worse by expected goals against when the top line's off the ice. Their goals against doubles. In fact, more than doubles. The depth of Montreal, especially with Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook and those guys out, there just isn't much. So I really like the matchup for Toronto too here. I do think they can carry the play against the second and third and even fourth lines from Montreal. The Toronto second line up to 65 minutes together, 3.2 expected goals per 60. I do worry about ice time. They just, you look at the 5-1 win for Toronto the other night. William Nylander played 15 and a half minutes. I know it was a 5-1 win, but it was 3-1 halfway through the game, even 4-1 in the third period, and he wasn't getting a ton of ice time. That's why, I'm not super excited about stacking Toronto 2 here. Is 18,500 for 17 minutes is fairly steep. You know what I mean? Even in a really good matchup. I'm fine with power play stacking if you want to just use the second line, then add in Austin Matthews or something like that. But a perfectly correlated Toronto second line against the depth of Montreal in a good power play matchup is pretty appealing to me. So I like Toronto 2 the best on the Toronto side. If you want to play Toronto 1, you don't want to fade Matthews. I get it. That's fine. But for me, I think Toronto 2 is in a really, really good 5-on-5 matchup. But Montreal 1 is my favorite line in this game. I agree with that.
New York Islanders with a 2.7 total heading into Tampa. The Lightning have a 3.4, but they're going to be without Kucherov. They do get Victor Hedman back, but Andrei Vasilevsky also out. So we have no idea really what the lines are going to be. Maybe they just run Hagel, Cirelli, Gonçalves because that's what they've done previously. Maybe they keep Gensel, Paul, Bjorkstrand together. I'm not 100% sure what they're going to do.
I'm wondering if they just go 11-7.
They might do that, yeah.
And then the lines will be even more of a mess.
Yeah. It's just what do you really want to do with Kucherov out? It's like that makes their power plays like really, really worse. I don't really want to be like, yeah, let's play Gensel Paul Bjorkstrand because they're fully correlated. But it's like their best player is off the power play. Who's going to be shooting the puck? Like maybe Hagel goes to the top power play, but he's 7,400. That's a spicy meatball. Hagel Sorelli, two man's 12,700. That's not cheap. Now, I would imagine they're going to play 21-22 plus here tonight. So that's probably still my preferred option. It's not like, the Islanders are good defensively. They're not. Hagel Sorelli still excellent at 5-on-5. It's just really expensive depending on who moves up or they go 11-7. If you want to do like a Hagel Sorelli Gensel, like that's like pretty much 20K, and that just feels bad. So I'd probably just go Hagel Sorelli. If it is Gonsalves, if it is Bjorkstrand, that's playable. If it's, who knows? I'd probably just go to them as a two-man just because they're going to play a plethora of minutes. Is it my favorite thing to do? No, because without Kucherov, the power play takes a monster hit at 5-on-5. Yes, they're still good players, but it's just like, I don't know. On the Islanders side, I think this is interesting because they're going Horvat, Heineman, Shabanov, Barzal, Lee, Sipelkoff, Richie Holmstrom, Duclair. It's just without Kucherov, depending on who plays with Hagel Sorelli, they get better defensively. But it is Jonas Johansson. So I don't know how much interest I have in Horvat, Heineman, Shabanov. I think my interest would be Barzal, Lee, Sipelkoff. If you look at Sipelkoff last year, he was really good with Brock Nelson. Can he be good with Lee and Barzal? I think so. He's min price. So like, I don't really want to be like, oh, let's leave off Sipelkoff and add in Duclair for more power play because Duclair he's having a terrible season. I guess you could, but like with Hagel Sorelli off the ice, there really isn't a matchup that concerns me. Jonas Johansson, he's having a better season, but his save percentage is still .888. So I think it would be New York Islanders 2, Barzal, Lee, Sipelkoff at 12.7. They are coming in at almost 6%, which is like not great, Bob. So like, I don't know if I'd prioritize them, but it would be the Islanders' second line. If you want to turn it into more of a power play stack for the same price, you can leave off cat noises and add in Duclair. But yeah, that just seems weird. So it would be Barzal, Lee, Sipelkoff for me on the Islanders side. Don't really know what to do on the Tampa side outside of Hagel Sorelli until we see lines or if they're going 11-7. But at the very least, Hagel's and Sorelli are going to play big old minutes here tonight.
Yeah. Like you said, Hagel Sorelli Gensel is just straight up a 20K line. And, they haven't played a ton over the last couple of years, but that three-man unit of Hagel Sorelli Gensel, 87 minutes together, 83 shot attempts, 39 shots, and 5.3 expected goals per 60.
Ham sandwich.
At 5-on-5. Again, if they go 11-7, they're not going to play all their 5-on-5 minutes together. But I even if they don't start on the same line, I do think they play a fair bit of 5-on-5 just because those guys are all going to get heavy minutes. And as they get rotated through, they're just going to end up playing a lot with each other just because they're playing so many minutes. And the power play does get worse without Kucherov, but it's kind of like that thing with Hughes in New Jersey where the New Jersey power play does get worse without Hughes. But it doesn't get like, 2024 Philadelphia Flyers worse, right? It's like a little bit below average. The Islanders don't take a ton of penalties. Their goaltending's been really good. So it's not really like a great power play matchup for the Lightning anyway. But with how good that line has been at 5-on-5, Hagel, Sorelli, Gensel, And the fact that they're probably going to have to play a bunch of minutes and it's a good 5-on-5 matchup for them, I don't mind playing them. I would rather play them than Carolina. I'm going to be honest, just because like I feel pretty certain all those guys are going to play over 20 minutes. Like you might see Hagel play like 24 minutes here tonight. I would rather play them over Winnipeg. So I don't mind just straight up doing a Gensel, Hagel, Sorelli stack. If you want to add in like Bjorkstrand or something like that, lower the average cost per player, I think that's fine. But I don't mind just loading in the top Tampa guys here and saying go bananas. So Tampa top 3 guys stack, I guess, for me. On the Islanders side, interesting thing here. Bo Horvat is 6,500 tonight. So far this season, he's put up 1.8 DK points more per game than Leon Draisaitl. He's put up more DK points per game than Dylan Larkin. He's not that far behind Connor McDavid, 0.3 DK points. No one seems to want to roster him. At least, the Islanders had decent ownership, nothing extreme. It's not his line. It is the Barzal-Lee line. Like Barzal and Lee in 125 minutes together this season, 69 shot attempts, 3.6 expected goals per 60. I'm not worried about power play correlation. Like this season, Tampa Bay tied for the second fewest power play goals against per game at 0.41. Over the last 4 weeks, they're at 0.44. So like not really getting worse. And it's not like the Islanders have a great power play anyway, but like a Barzal, Horvat, Lee stack is 16,700. And Barzal and Lee have been great together at 5-on-5. Bo Horvat, maybe his line's going to be a lot worse defensively with Shabanov, but him and Heineman have been able to make it work with like 4 or 5 different wingers this season. I don't mind a Horvat, Barzal, Lee stack here. I'm not super worried about power play correlation on the Islanders side. So that's the 3-man stack I like. As a mid-price stack, I think they're perfectly fine here. It is the Tampa side I like better, and I like the idea of just loading up their 3 top guys and moving along.
Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.3 total heading to LA. The Kings have a 3.2. I think this game is a redux of the other night. Kings going Kempe, Kopitar, LaFerriere. I think that's different, though. Fiala, Byfield, Armia. Chicago going Bedard, Burakovsky, Green, Bertuzzi, Nazar, Moore.
Yeah, just to jump in real quick, they took Trevor Moore off the top line and put LaFerriere there last game, and they just started morning skate, and it was LaFerriere staying on the top line.
Yeah, I don't mind that line, honestly, because Alex LaFerriere is an elite doer of stuff, and that is going to help Adrian Kempe. They're 15,300, 6.2% projected ownership with a 5% top 2 stack. I much prefer them than the Byfield, Fiala, Armia line, just because like I do like Armia as a player. His role is more defensive than offensive. So I don't mind LaFerriere up there with Kopitar and Kempe. I don't love the Kings in general here. I mean, they do have a 3.2 total. As a mid-range stack, there's something they would be a line I would consider. I wouldn't start my lineup with them if I got to like a second stack and I need something in the 14 to 16K range. I don't mind LA1 here. LA2 coming in at 9%, 14,100. At that point, I'm just going to the Kempe, Kopitar, LaFerriere line. On the Chicago side, I know Connor Bedard has been great, but Drew Doughty being back makes that a miserable matchup. And like, just to put it in perspective, like I know Gavrikov and Anderson were unbelievably good last year, but in 150 minutes this year, Mikey Anderson and Drew Doughty have expected goals against per 60 at 1.99. Actual goals are also 1.99. Like that is just nasty. So I'm just pretty much out on the Blackhawks here.
Yeah, I mean, that last game, it was on Thursday night. That was a 2-1 game. Chicago pulled out the late win. Good for them. But, that game was seemed like it was dominated by Los Angeles. I mean, they do that sometime to kind of like Carolina of the West. I don't have a lot of interest in the Blackhawks here. Like you said, really tough matchup for the top line. Not going to stack the second line without Bedard, so out on Chicago. I agree with you on the Kings. It's Kempe, Kopitar, Laferriere. I mean, one, like you say Laferriere is an elite doer of stuff. Like he is, which is nice. He's a shooter, which is something that, certainly Adrian Kempe is as well, but they've tried a bunch of different guys on that top line that just haven't worked. Last year, Laferriere, 2.5 shots per game this season, 2.1, down a bit, but he's also seen less talented players, let's call it, like that third line really didn't get off to a great start. 15,300, I'm not really worried about any of the matchups on the Chicago side. Both teams have pretty good penalty kills, which is one thing that kind of worries me, but it's not like we ever stacked Los Angeles for their power play. We haven't stacked the Los Angeles Kings for their power play excellence. I honestly don't even remember when. It's been years. So, like, I think there was one year where the second unit, the Deneau Moore second power play unit was like one of the best power plays in the league, period, let alone for a second unit. And we'd stack them, but like that's basically it. And it's not the case this year. But at 15,300, I think, they're very much in play, 17.5 to 19.5 minutes. They're going to see depth matchups as well. They don't always use the Kopitar line to shut down matchup, certainly a lot less this year than they have in previous seasons. I think they're very firmly in play at 15,300. The Kings' second line with Armia has been solid offensively, but you only get one guy on the power play. Byfield, his shooting has been fairly inconsistent, let's call it. So it's Los Angeles one that I like best in this game. And if you want to do like a Fogle Moore 2-man or something down on the third line, I guess that's okay. But for me, it's Kings one that's drawing my attention.
Yeah. Winnipeg Jets with a 2.8 total heading into Edmonton. The Oilers have a 3.7. I guess the cat is out of the bag on the Oilers here. They absolutely laid a lot more pipe than the people in my basement the other day to Seattle. They put up a 9 spot. They're going to be running back McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, Podkolzin, and Savoie. Winnipeg played last night. They beat Buffalo, but that was with Eric Comrie saving 312 goals above expected. It's going to be Thomas Milik, I think is his name, or Nikita Topolo is
Vancouver. Yeah, it's Thomas Milic. I think it's Milic is how you pronounce the
Milic. Yeah, he's Croatia. I think that's how you say it. But yeah, don't know too much about him, but I would imagine it's a drop off. We'll just say Winnipeg running back Connor Scheifele, Velarde, Perfetti. Someone told me last season that I was supposed to say Perfetti, but now it's Perfetti again with Tays and the Mestikov. Here's the thing. Draisaitl, Podkolzin, and Savoie coming in at 22% projected. That's just a load of poppycock. I will not be doing that. I know Savoie had a multi-goal game, and one of them was shorthanded. But, I don't know about 22%. That feels a little bit chasey. What I do like is McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins at 19,500. We currently have them projected at 8.9%. I don't believe that for a second. I think all three of those guys will be in double digits, and McDavid will be above 20% in some spots. That being said, I think power play stacking is the way I would go here. I do think Edmonton 1 is fine, but I feel hard-pressed at this point in my life to not include Rian Draisaitl. So I would find a way to get Draisaitl in. You could either add him in, leave off Nugent Hopkins. I know Nugent Hopkins has had a 3-point game the other night, but he really has not been great. You want a 4-man stack it, perfectly acceptable here. The cat's out of the bag. There's going to be ownership. Thomas Milic, cool, fine, good, great, grand, wonderful, no yelling on the bus, all that stuff. But Winnipeg 1, not great defensively. What worries me, right? You can say their penalty kill is fine, this and that. McDavid is unbelievably streaky. And like, he's obviously, even when he goes through cold stretches, the numbers he puts up are ridiculous. But when he's rolling, like he did the other night, a hat trick and an assist, like he usually has a continuation of that. So like, Edmonton's my favorite play on the board. I'd find a way to get Draisaitl in. On the Winnipeg side, 20,600 for the top line. I guess it's fine just from the sheer fact that like Edmonton goalies are just atrocious. But I don't really want to stack them for over 20K on the road, back-to-back, 20 teams on the slate. I'd rather just go Tampa, I think, maybe even Carolina. So I'm probably out on the Jets here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned McDavid's streakiness. I was just looking at last season, and before Christmas of last year, he had 2 different 8-game stretches where he averaged over 2 points per game. 2 separate, one in November, one in December. So, it's a guy, he's like, he'll put up like 12 points in 10 games. And then in the next 5 games after that, he'll put up like 13 points. Whether that's one of these stretches, I mean, the top producers will go on hot streaks like that. Over the last 2 years, that McDavid, Hyman, Nugent, Hopkins line, 330 minutes, 72 shot attempts, 3.3 expected goals per 60, but shooting under 8%. You got to hope that that's going to come up a little bit. McDavid averaging nearly 3 shots per game over his last 14 games, 1.5 points per game in that span. I'm fine with just, going to the top line, adding in Leon Draisaitl and then being on your way. If you want to just go to the top line, I think that's okay as well. The perfect correlation, the Winnipeg penalty kill, not really great this season. Not terrible by any stretch of the imagination, but over the last 5 weeks, the Winnipeg Jets are giving up the 6th most power play goals against per game on the season. They're 13th, so worse than league average, whether you're looking at the whole season or just the last 5 weeks. Obviously, we know how good the Edmonton power play can be. If you want to just stack the power play, I'm fine with adding like one of like Podkolzin or Savoie into the stack just because they're so cheap. They're getting some shots. Like Podkolzin has 9 shots in his last 5 games. Savoie has 18 in his last 10. So they're not quite 2 shots per game, but they're generating some shot quality. Not really worried about any of the matchups from the Winnipeg side. So for me, it'd be Edmonton 1, Edmonton power play. The Winnipeg side is kind of intriguing here. It's set aside how good Edmonton looked in their last game against Seattle. The Edmonton Oilers they haven't been great defensively this season at all. Over the last 5 weeks, or the last 15 games, Edmonton Oilers, 3.51 expected goals against per 60. It's the 5th worst rate in the league. Goals against per 60, 3.83, 3rd worst rate. This is a fairly solid matchup for the Winnipeg top line. And nobody's playing them. 1.4% projected ownership, 8.9% top 2 stack. I know I said I'd it's definitely rather play the Tampa guys than Winnipeg here tonight. But if you're 20 maxing or 150 or something like that, this is not a good defensive Edmonton team. And even scoring 9 goals, they give up 4 to the Seattle Kraken, right? And we know that the Winnipeg Jets can absolutely just nuke a slate on any given night. The Winnipeg Jets top line anyway. So I think it's single entry. I prefer the Edmonton side. But if you're 20 maxing, 150, those types of things, getting 1 in your 20 max of the Edmonton top line, or 3 or 4, 2 or 3, 3 or 4 or something in 150, I think makes a lot of sense. This is still a below average defensive Edmonton team with goalies in net, Edmonton goalies. So I certainly don't mind Winnipeg 1 in MME here.
Yeah, I mean, whenever they're low owned, despite the matchup, the flow chart says play them. So yeah, Detroit Red Wings 3.1 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken have a 2.9. Detroit going Larkin, Raymond, Finney, DeBrincat, Kane, Kopp. Seattle going McCann, Eberle, Beniers, Tolvanen, Stevenson, Catton, Wright, Kako, Newman.
Yeah, while we were on, they had morning skate, I think, and Kako is on the second line with Tolvanen and Stevenson now. I think Wright is now the third line center or fourth line center. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So Kako is with Stevenson and Tolvanen.
Yeah.
Really trying to make Stevenson work, I guess. Enjoy that. I have interest in Detroit 1 just from the sheer fact that they send out Stevenson against top comp. Like, I know Kako is a good defensive forward, but Stevenson surely is not. Like, he is atrocious by any metric you look at. He's just bad. Like, Larkin, Raymond, Finney, 17,700, 7% top two, 3.7% projected ownership. It also might be – you said it might be what's his face?
No, Decord is starting. We also got that news as well.
Decord, Decord has been obviously the way better goalie, but like Stevenson is atrocious. I do like Detroit 1 at that ownership. The price is fine. You want to make it into a little bit more of a power play stack. Seattle doesn't take a ton of penalties. Their penalty kill is bad though, so you want to leave off Finney, Adam, Kane. That makes it 19,600. A power play stack for under 20K. They have a good power play. It's a good spot for it. I do like Detroit here. Surprised, that second line is coming in with more ownership. I guess it's because, they're $1,800 less. And Lucas Raymond honestly has not been great from DFS perspective recently. I guess it's fine. I don't really want to play Andrew Kopp. And, that Beniers line has been the better defensive line. So, I'd probably just go to Detroit 1 here. You can leave Finney there if you want. They've been fine with him. 3.1 goals for in 230 minutes. You know what I mean? So it would be Detroit 1. You want to turn into power play stack. I think that's fine. On the Seattle side, it would be McCann, Eberle, Beniers. They get really good minutes for their price. I wish their price was a little bit cheaper, but at 14,600, in 70 minutes together, they've been excellent. They avoid the Seider-Evanson pairing, which is important. They're fully correlated for whatever that means. Seattle power play has been bad since they've come into the league, but it does count for a little bit, I guess. It would be that McCann, Eberle, Beniers line. I don't mind them at 5.3%. Because at least like with these line iterations, they won't play 13 minutes. They're going to get decent minutes. So it would be that Seattle 1 for me.
Yeah. On the Detroit side, I mean, listen, Seattle penalty kill is not good. They're tied for the most power play goals against per game on the season. Over the last 5 weeks, the most power play goals against, 15 power play goals against in their last 15 games. We know the Detroit power play, it is scuffled a little bit at times this season, but overall at 12.3 goals per 60, it's not super elite, but it's at the very top of the next tier. It is a great power play. So this is a really good power play matchup for the Red Wings, especially where Seattle started actually taking some penalties, 3 times shorthanded per game. Over the last 5 weeks, it's worse than league average. And that Detroit top line, their last 10 games, 66 shot attempts, 2.8 expected goals per 60. I was looking at defense usage of defensemen when Detroit is on the road. Larkin has more at Cedar on the ice for 50% of his 5-on-5 time. So, not super concerned about being stuck with the depth defenseman. Larkin, 36 shots in his last 10 games. And one thing I will push back on is Lucas Raymond. I don't think he deserved the slander that you threw his way.
I wasn't slandering. I'm just saying he hasn't been the best DFS performer recently.
No, but he has points in 12 out of his last 13 games. 6 of those games are multi-point games, and he has 3 shots per game in that span. So he didn't start off great. I think he's been a lot better over the last month. You want to take out Finney and put in Kane or DeBrincat. I think that's fine. Make it more of a power play stack. But a Detroit 1 is perfectly playable here. Like you said, going out against Chandler Stevenson and Tolvanen, 2.9 expected goals against in their minutes together this year. and is a great power play match besides that. I really like Detroit 1 here. You want to drop down to Detroit 2, not going to argue, but for me, it's Detroit 1. On the Seattle side, it's top line or bust. They have been pretty good together. 70 shot attempts, 4.1 expected goals per 60, all in the top power play unit together, all skating between 17 and 19 minutes. Even Eberle at 2.7 shots per game over his last 15 games, like he's generated some shots. So I think Seattle 1 is firmly in play here, especially where if they're not going to be matched up against Larkin, they're not going to see a ton of the Moritz Seider pairing. 14,600. They're fine as a mid price, but for me, this is a Detroit 1 game. Detroit 1/Detroit power play.
Yep. Looking for info on this last game, I can't really find anything, which is lovely. Minnesota Wild with a 3.2 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 2.8. We don't know the Wild lines. There is a chance Demko is back here tonight, but I haven't seen any. They would have to activate him off IR for there to be a chance. If it's not, it's going to be Nikita Topolo, I guess. Connor Sheary just tying it for the Rangers. Of course, I slandered him before the show, and he tied it up. Good for me. Hell yeah. Maybe Minnesota loads up their top line again. Kaprizov, Boldy, Eriksson, Ek. That's 21,800. We have that in the top stacks currently at 23.4% with 10% projected ownership. If that's the line, I do have a ton of interest in them at that price. I know that's really expensive, but there are a ton of lines in that 12 to 14K range that you can fit with them. Vancouver has been atrocious defensively. They don't have a very good penalty kill. The one thing that would give me pause if Demko is back, that is a massive upgrade in net. We'll have to see news throughout the day because usually, they have, was it 5 p.m. Eastern they would have to activate him by?
Yeah.
I think that's the law of the land. So in the next 2.5 hours, if you don't see Thatcher Demko taken off IR, then I do really like Minnesota 1 here, assuming they are loaded together. We won't know, but, even so, it's a good power play matchup, and they are, 21,800 for the three of them, so I don't mind it. On the Vancouver side, I guess it would be Patterson, DeBrusque, Carlson at 12,800, fully correlated, yippee-ki-yay. They did double shift Patterson because, they realized that maybe David Kampf isn't the answer as their 2C. Shocking. Patrick Alvin, the Dr. Phil gif, hello. But I don't really want to play any Vancouver going up against this Minnesota goaltending. So it would be Vancouver 1 in MME if it got there, but that's really about it.
Yeah, I'll be quick on the Vancouver side. I agree with you. Not really a ton of interest in the Canucks here. They're at home, but it's still a back-to-back for them. I don't think, the lines could honestly change at any given moment. It's not a great matchup given how well the Minnesota goaltending and, the improvements that Minnesota has made overall. Another thing is, they've been taking fewer penalties as the season's gone on. Not that they were a team that took a ton of penalties as a whole, but this season, 2.36 time shorthanded per game is tied for the fewest in the league. Not really a good power play spot for Vancouver, so more or less out on the Canucks. It is the Minnesota side. Assuming the top line is together, it would be the top lines, of Boldy, Eriksson, Ek, Johansson, or not Johansson, Kaprizov, sorry. Geez, well, I don't know why I said Johansson there. Assuming they're together, they would be my favorite stack over 20K, just because they are perfectly correlated. Those guys, talk about minutes, 21 to 23. Kaprizov at times has been playing 24 minutes, heavy minutes. A great power play matchup. The Vancouver Canucks, 3.3 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. Second most power play goals against per game over the last 5 weeks. Over the course of the season, the most power play goals against per game. It's a great power play spot for Minnesota. So I really do like the top line here, assuming that that's what it is. we get any updates, we'll share them in the Discord. We may not know until warm-ups, but at the very least, you're going to get a power play stack in a great power play spot. So for me, it's Minnesota 1, not much interest on the Vancouver side.
Let's talk about defensemen. There are no defensemen above 7K here tonight. You don't have to be like, oh, I need to sell my kidney to fit in Zach Werenski here tonight. 6K and up, there's Quinn Hughes, Evan Bouchard, Josh Morrissey, Roman Jake Hariosi, Mo Sider, and Jake Sanderson. Honestly, like, I think, it's not like a super hot take. Bouchard would be number 1 for me. Quinn Hughes is number 2 just because he's Quinn Hughes, and if Vancouver is going to do anything here tonight, he is going to be heavily involved. As I said yesterday, his minutes are insane. Or not yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. He played 29-29 yesterday in a regulation game. Mo Sider, definitely in a great spot here. I do like him as well. Jake Sanderson as well. I don't know if Zub is back or not. I didn't see.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, but still, like, it's a good spot for him. Maybe he won't play 28 minutes tonight. He'll maybe play 24 instead, but cool. But yeah, Bouchard 1, Quinn Hughes 2, Mo Sider 3.
Yeah, I'm going to, the defenseman 6K above, it's kind of funny. It's like there's 2 different groups. Bouchard, Sanderson, and Hughes all projected within 0.2 DK points of each other. And then Sider, Morrissey, and Yossi all within 0.6. But, there's a 2.5 point gap between them. By point per dollar, Sanderson is first. I really do like Sanderson here tonight. Like, I'm not, obviously, with Joel Hofer in net, not super concerned about the goaltending matchup. Since Thomas Chabot's injury, he's averaging just under 26 minutes a game. Considering, shot volume, he's at just under 2 shots per game. He's at 2 blocks per game. Like, he's live for a shot or block bonus in every single game. He's playing 26 minutes a night. I like Sanderson. Bouchard, certainly in that matchup against Winnipeg, with Winnipeg on the road, perfectly fine. Quinn Hughes, like, it's a tough matchup against Minnesota. It's one of those things, like, if I was playing 20 lineups and I had some similar-ish lineups where I want to rotate a defenseman, maybe he'd be like my second or third option. But against the Wild, like, I think I'd just rather play Sanderson or Bouchard. Obviously, Mo Sider against Seattle. If you want to throw him in your Detroit stacks, fine. I think he's okay as a one-off. But for me, it's Bouchard and Sanderson, especially in the mid-price range, like Rasmus Anderson. They keep giving him minutes, and he keeps actually doing stuff with them, which is kind of nice to see. He's got 12 shots in his last 5 games. He's got 3 block bonuses in his last 5 games. He's got 2 multi-point games in his last 5 games. Don't mind Anderson. For under 5K, like, Victor Hedman is back, and with Tampa, I think probably going 11-7. I'm worried about Darren Radish's role and minutes, but Radish is fine. Vince Dunn, certainly, for Seattle at home on the top power play. Sean Walker, assuming I don't think Keandre Miller is playing again here tonight. So with Miller out, with Slavin out, like, Sean Walker might have to play 23, 24 minutes here for Carolina. Good home matchup for him. Brock Faber, I guess, just because it's such a good power play matchup for Minnesota, but, like, somebody once called him Cody Ceci with glasses. I just can't get that out of my head. But just because it's such a good power play matchup for Minnesota, I guess he's okay. There's a lot of guys under 4K I think are interesting here, like Matthias Ekholm, obviously Edmonton in a good home matchup. Hampus Lindholm for Boston, playing huge minutes without Charlie McAvoy. Simon Nemec for New Jersey in a pretty good power play matchup, though, the power play defenseman for New Jersey changes every period. Alex Nikishin for Carolina at home with Miller out. He might be the number 2, maybe number 3 defenseman here for them. Jonas Brodin for Minnesota, good road matchup. Dylan Sandberg, he's projecting well. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, top power play time for the Leafs, whatever that's worth. Nikita Zadorov playing around 23 minutes a game with McAvoy out. He's fine. Under 3K, it's Brady Shea, Andrew Peak. Tyler Cleven's actually been playing like 19 minutes a game for the Sens. I know Zub is back. That kind of hurts, but I'd mention that. And Alex Vlasic from Chicago. Dastus, min price. Sucks Hedman is back, though. I think he's lost his power play role, so not as keen on him anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, on Brock Faber, I remember we had quite the argument in our Discord about Brock Faber. Good actual hockey player, doesn't do enough with his peripherals to be great for DFS, but it is a very, very good power play spot. Let's talk about goalies here. I don't particularly love the top range or the mid range or the bottom range. No, actually, the cheap guys I actually have more interest in than the expensive guys. Like if you want to play the Minnesota goalie 8,500, I think that's honestly fine. Vancouver on a back-to-back, they have been absolute ham sandwiches. More of a cash game for me though. Like it's just the price thing. I don't really like the other guys in the top range, like Vanacek at 8,300. No. Olmark, I guess, is fine. Like he can't be awful the whole season. I don't really want to risk it though. Gibson, Dobish, Skinner, that's going to be a pass for me. Don't mind Jake Allen at 7,800. Honestly, both goalies in that game interest me. Jake Allen and Jeremy Swayman at 7,400. I think Spencer Knight at 7,500 is playable here. Sorokin without Kucherov is fine, but I still always worry about how efficient Tampa is. And then for the super cheap guys, Joey Decord, I think is fine at 7,100. Dustin Wolf at 7K is fine. If UC Saros gets the start at 6,900, that would also interest me.
Yeah, for goalies 7,700 and above, for me, it goes Kemper 1, Allmark 2, Allen 3. Brandon Bussey actually has the highest projection, and it's just because Nashville has such a low total. But Carolina just worries me so much that it's going to be one of those, like, if they win, it's like 4-3 with 3 goals against on 18 shots or something like that. Like, that has happened way too much to Carolina goaltending this year. So it's Kemper, Allmark, and Allen for me. Cheaper goalies, Jeremy Swayman certainly at home against New Jersey. Assuming Spencer Knight gets the start for Chicago, I don't think that has been confirmed yet. And Chicago plays tomorrow in Anaheim. So I think Spencer Knight starts. I don't think it's guaranteed, though. If Knight starts, I don't mind him. If he doesn't start, not in on him. I'd be certainly in way more on Swayman. And yeah, Joey Decord, as you mentioned, 7,100. Like if you need a cheaper goalie than Swayman, I think he's fine, assuming that Knight's not in net.
Yep. Next week is not going to be 6 days. We'll for sure be here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. No slate on Friday. Wednesday, I will not be around. It's only a 4-game slate. So I think it might just be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday next week. So, yeah. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm going off the board here. Alex Iafallo.
I wouldn't have gotten there in like 78 guesses if you gave them to me. I guess I got to keep the same energy here. It's not as spicy, but it's a team that we hate. I'm going Jared McCann.
Perfect. Love it.
So yeah, we will see you guys Monday. We'll be in the Discord talking our sauce, and good luck everybody tonight.
Good luck tonight, everyone.